All right, guys, welcome to the Crazy Pills podcast. And today, what I'm going to talk about is the vaccine. Okay, so throughout this video, I'll put in some video clips, and I think you could actually hear it in audio too, where it just shows the hypocrisy. I don't even want to use the word hypocrisy, but just how inconsistent, how the narrative shifts completely. Whether it's information coming from mainstream media, information coming from the government, and it just is something to make you think, right? If you know that someone has a history of lying, and they constantly change their narrative and lie, and they've been caught lying over and over and over, you would have to be crazy to actually still follow along and then believe what they're saying and let that actually like control you, right? If you know someone is corrupt, not a good person on social media, and then they're posting all these like positive messages and things that sound good, right? It's like, wow, like if anything, you'll be like, wow, that person's really, really fake. You're not just gonna forget everything that's happened in the past and then all of a sudden just believe what they're saying now, right? Like, healthy skepticism based on data points over and over and over again, that's proved that this person, this entity has a history of not telling the truth is normal, okay? That's not a conspiracy theory, that's normal. But nowadays, I don't think it's just the country, I think it's the world. It's almost like there's these like factions where, okay, there's the mainstream narrative, and then you can agree with the mainstream narrative, right? Which then Facebook, Twitter, YouTube will allow you to post your content. And then there's the people that openly disagree. And then the people that openly disagree with the mainstream narrative, oh, that's dangerous. That's dangerous information. And then we're gonna censor it. And then also, especially when it comes to vaccines, right? I noticed this a few months ago. A lot of the like actual doctors, right? They're more of a medical expert than I am, who come out and speak out against vaccine. Here's the reason why, here's the research. And then all of a sudden, like their Wikipedia page gets changed, the character assassination comes. Okay, someone speaks out about the vaccine, or a lot of the COVID information, like from like back in like April and May, character assassination. Right? This person is doing it to sell a book. This person has advocated this before. You know, like it's just like over and over and over. Okay, and I'll just say this, I'm gonna put this clip in there right now.
Would be a vaccine by the end of the year. But of course, Orange Man bad. And of course, he was telling lies in order to win an election. And this is how the media treated him then.
An ambitious timeline, and many health experts aren't so sure it's achievable.
So many experts and doctors today immediately cast doubt on that.
Experts say he'd need a miracle to be right. It would take, over a year.
Experts are warning that kind of timeline may be overly ambitious.
Health experts pushing back.
So many experts.
Well, NBC News did a fact check on this today that a coronavirus vaccine, Trump says it could come out this year. This sort of, happy talk that he's doing about a vaccine.
You cannot talk yourself into a vaccine. The fastest a vaccine has ever been produced from start to finish is 5 years.
Previous vaccines have taken years to develop.
History actually holds a lot of different lessons for us about politicians rushing to science when it comes to vaccines.
Will we get the best vaccine in this timetable, or will we just get a vaccine?
This kind of promise is clearly political, but it's also remarkably dangerous.
Some have even argued it's perhaps dangerous.
So if we say, well, they can't really get this vaccine, the science is questionable. Now we're the negative Nancys. Oh, look at that Acosta, always trying to kill our optimism.
Throughout most of this year, right, starting when COVID started happening in the US in March, right, and then again, I'm not a fan of Trump, but he was saying, hey, we're gonna have a vaccine, we're gonna have a vaccine by the end of this year. By the end of this year, he was saying that, right? This is what mainstream media was telling us. It's not true, he's just saying it, he's just straight up lying. All the experts say there's no way you could get it out in that short amount of time. It's gonna be at least 3 years or like X amount of years. And then if you rush a vaccine out, it's going to be dangerous. That was the narrative. That was the narrative. I have video proof, right? And all of a sudden now, this vaccine's out, it's 95% effective. And then like, do it. Like you're not doing it for yourself, you're doing it for other people. Like hope love, like, what the heck is going on? This actually reminds me too, right? So for those of you that remember, 9/11 happened, that's 2001, right? Went into Afghanistan, supposedly to hunt down bin Laden because he's a mastermind of 9/11, right? Shortly after that, in 2003, we went into Iraq, okay? That was Saddam Hussein. And what was our reasoning for going into Iraq? Does anybody remember?
I take the threat very seriously. I take the fact that he develops weapons of mass destruction very seriously.
What was our reasoning? Our reasoning for going into Iraq was because Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction, WMDs. You could watch Team America, they joke about it. You could go watch old videos of George W. Bush talking about it. We went into Iraq, we essentially overthrew this dictator. It's not saying Saddam's a great guy, but he was a ruler of a country, went in there, overthrew him, right? You can actually find on YouTube, who knows, they didn't ban those, videos of Saddam, like, this is like long beard, like picking like ticks out of his like beard. And then there's videos of him getting hung, okay? So went in there saying WMDs, and then ended up with, I don't know who hung, there was like a public hanging of Saddam Hussein. We never found WMDs. Everyone who was there knows there was no WMDs. Literally, it's like we just forgot. There's like amnesia. We just keep going on about our lives. We literally went into this country saying this is the reason why we're going in, and then it's been proven, right, that we didn't actually find what we said was there, overthrew this ruler, executed him, and nothing happened, right?
You fell to your stomach when you found out there were no weapons of mass destruction. Can you bring me to that moment? Did someone walk in and say, we've stopped looking, they're not there? Who was it? How did that happen?
It just kind of was, it evolved. The fact that there wasn't weapons evolved. I mean, when we first got in there, started looking around and didn't find anything, you get that kind of sinking feeling that, uh-oh.
Like, wake up. This is what I mean by like waking up. This is an illusion, right? You see the very first video, right? Guy gets behind, he thinks no one can see him, puts on a mask, walks out on stage, gets behind the podium, takes the masks off, okay? Here's another video for you, right? It's a Weather Channel. This was a famous one, you guys probably have seen this.
Picking it up here in Wilmington, North Carolina, right at the Intracoastal, and we're in one of these bands.
So that's Mike Seidel in Wilmington, North Carolina. But as he braces and fights the wind Friday, check out the two guys who seem to walk right by him in the background there with no trouble at all. The video has been shared more than 1 million times on social media. So now a spokesperson for the Weather Channel is defending Seidel, saying it's important to note that the two individuals in the background are walking on concrete while Seidel tries to maintain his footing on wet grass. The spokesperson goes on to say Seidel was exhausted after reporting on air until 1 a.m.
And, or you could just even see the narrative, right? Like, how can you have basically like a similar concept and then just paint a completely different narrative just because it doesn't fit like the agenda? Like, and then you want me to believe this information that comes out, right? Like, look, I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm not a medical expert. I'm not going to try to pretend I am. But to tell me that I shouldn't be skeptical, and if I raise questions, then somehow I'm like tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist. And then basically, up until this year, right, barely ever like ban videos or censor stuff. And then this year, more than ever, we just start censoring stuff left and right. And you don't want me to be suspicious? Like, come on. And then if I'm suspicious, there's something wrong with me. Like, I can't think for myself. This shit's crazy. So for those of you that aren't familiar with China right now, right? So obviously it's CCP, right? Communist Party, really assumed power back in early 2012, maybe a little bit before that, right? But a big thing that they do there right now is something called a social credit score. Okay, and I'm going to simplify the social credit score. It's not just a credit score. It's basically depending on your actions, right? So a lot of it, they censor a lot of like what you can and can't search. So the Chinese Communist Party has like a narrative, or they have a narrative they push out, right? So you either support that narrative, or if you do things that don't support the narrative, your social credit score drops, okay? You're deemed by the government as being untrustworthy. And when that happens, and they've been experimenting with this for years, right? All these like different formulas, but like one thing they do is if your social credit score drops, then they're gonna actually limit the amount of money that you can withdraw or spend a day, okay? I just heard recently, there's talk that like if you want to go to the Super Bowl, you have to actually have proof of vaccination to be able to go in the Super Bowl, right? There's they're talking about also if you want to fly, you have to have proof of vaccination. If you the IMF, so International Monetary Fund, so think like the Reserve Bank, right? So every major power right now in the world has a central bank that's actually, it's a private entity that's actually managing the public's money. Like think about that. And I think I made a video talking about this in the past. It's very, very corrupt. Give you lots of books if you want to start with one. Check out Creature from Jekyll Island, right? But it would make your blood boil how corrupt it is, okay? But the IMF is essentially the central bank of central banks. So the IMF recently published a white paper. You know, a couple people were talking about where the world's economy is going, right? And they actually suggested in there that we can actually issue a credit score, not a social credit score like the CCP, right? But just a credit score, and it can be based off our search history or browser history, okay? Because that has shown a strong correlation of like reliable or trustworthiness. And if you think about it, once you go down that route, you're essentially issuing a social credit score where, hey, you know what? You can only go to the website that we approve of. If there's any of these other websites that basically publish a narrative that's different than the narrative that we want you to believe in, your credit score is going to drop. Like, do you see what's happening? Again, I don't know enough about vaccines and then viruses and everything to sit up here. I just own a gym, right? To come up here and argue that. I could tell you what I read, what makes sense, right? And then like all the information that I think makes sense and doesn't make sense. But that's not the point. The point is like I would just implore you guys, like wake up. Like something isn't right here, right? How do you have the media spending the whole year saying there's no way a vaccine is going to come out? No way the vaccine is going to come out. And then the weekend, I remember this specifically, the weekend after the elections were decided, right? So back in early November, hey, guess what? Moderna came out with a vaccine that's 94% effective, right? Like a week or two later, guess what? Now Pfizer has a vaccine that's 95% effective, right after the elections are over, right? Like, is it a coincidence? Like it's at the very least, it's kind of fishy. You know, and then like we're saying, hey, there's no way it's gonna be healthy, and there's no way it's gonna be safe. It's too fast. And now it's, hey, do your part, slow the spread. You know, hope, science, and then like the need to like have videos of leaders or like public figures like getting it to show that it works, to show that it's trustworthy. Like, what the hell is going on here? I could say for you right now, there's no fucking way I'm getting the vaccine, okay? And then people in the medical industry, so a lot of nurses, like doctors that I talk to privately, you know, they don't feel like they want to get the vaccine. They feel a lot of pressure, right? Like the cancel culture is real. Like if they don't get it, they feel the pressure of getting canceled, or at least being shamed. And never mind just speaking out against it, right? Like what I'm doing right now, but just actually, just saying, hey, no, I'm not going to get the vaccine. They're going to feel the pressure of being shamed, being judged, and everything. I think about it, this is ridiculous. And wake up. January is going to be a crazy month. You know, and I'll end up with this. January is going to be a crazy month. I was going to go somewhere that I'm not. If you do feel like something is wrong or this doesn't make sense, just know you're not alone. Like, a lot of people see it. It's just a mainstream narrative, right? What's on the media, and then really like what's allowed on social media, and like what's fact check, what's not fact check, what's marked as false information. It's kind of like controlling this narrative. But you know, you're an adult human being. You critically think for yourself, like observe and see what's right or wrong. And I'll end with this. Okay, we learned about science ever since we were a kid. Okay, and the basis of science, I remember from when we were learning in middle school, was you form a hypothesis. Okay, so a hypothesis isn't a theory yet, it's just a hypothesis. Okay, this is what I think is going on. And then you observe. Okay, you could just observe in nature, you could set up experiments to observe, and then when you have enough data consistently over time to verify the hypothesis, then the hypothesis could become a theory. And then even then, theories could become disproved. Okay, there's plenty of times where theories have become disproved as technology advances and things like that, okay? If the observed data doesn't fit the hypothesis, you don't sweep the data underneath the rug or discount the data so your hypothesis hold. You update the hypothesis. Now, think for yourself this whole year with COVID, with the information that's coming out. Did we update the hypothesis, or did we just discount observable data? Did we update the hypothesis, or did we just censor or discount observable data so we could preserve the hypothesis? And then we want to call it science. You know, I'll leave it at that.
The man has only one look, for Christ's sake. Blue Steel, Ferrari, Latigra, they're the same face! Doesn't anyone notice this? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!